Joining us now for more on these mysterious sightings is Gregory McNeal, professor of law at Pepperdine. He's also an expert on the use of drones and the laws that regulate them. Good morning to you, Gregory.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
I've been waiting to have this conversation, Gregory. I can't lie because this is something that everyone's been curious about, and it's been growing right over the last week or so. Professor, I want to jump into this. Before we jump into conspiracy theories, I just want to start with, you're familiar with drones. Everyone's familiar with drones. We've seen them around. What is making these sightings or these mysterious sightings different? What is causing all this speculation and also anxiety?
We say we're familiar with drones, but I think a lot of people don't spend too much time at night looking up into the sky and realizing how many things are actually flying around. It sounds ridiculous to say that, but briefly taking a look up into the sky doesn't really reveal to you all of the things that are there. So I think what's going on is there's a little bit of social contagion here, a little bit of excitement around the news story. I heard something recently where people are going outside, grabbing a bottle of wine and doing a drone watching party. But if you hadn't done it in the context of drones, you would quickly start to realize that there are satellites passing over. There are a ton more flights that are passing over each day than otherwise one might think. And so many of the things that we're finding are that people are misidentifying manned aircraft as drones. That's probably point one. Point two is that many people are actually seeing drones, but that does not mean something nefarious is going on because people are allowed to fly drones so long as they're not flying them in places that are unlawful, like over airports or critical infrastructure. So I think there is a little bit of confusion and misidentification going on, and then that's enhanced by the attention that's being put on it by government officials and by the news.
Well, let's go back to what President-elect Donald Trump just said there. You heard him say that he believes that the Biden administration knows more than they're telling. Is this something you maybe think is a secret military operation or even an exercise? What do you make of what he said and what this could potentially be?
Of course, that sits out there as a possibility, but one would have to imagine that if it were a secret military operation, once it was no longer secret, they would try and terminate it before they were found out as being involved in a secret military operation. So the fact that it continues, I think debunks that a little bit, unless, of course, the scenario is that they are purposely testing something where if people see many drones, how would they respond to those drones, right? So sort of conducting a secret test in the open. That's the only plausible explanation here. I think also there's a challenge that's going on for the average person, which is that I was on a government task force that sought to regulate the use of drones in a variety of circumstances, as well as flying at night and not being able to be identified. And one of the things that we all noticed, all of the appointees to this government task force, was that people are not really capable of judging altitude or speed at a distance. So now you have officials, right, law enforcement who see things moving in the sky, and they may also misidentify them, not for any reason other than their lack of familiarity with identifying airborne objects.
Let me ask you this then, Gregory. The response that we've gotten from Homeland Security, you mentioned it here, that you said if it were some type of military exercise, maybe they would say it because it's no longer a secret. But we haven't heard much from them, and they keep saying there's no threat to public safety, but they also admit they don't have all the answers. And if you recall, back in 2023, we had the Chinese spy balloon that was floating around, and obviously folks were concerned about that. So this issue can even go beyond just drones. It's about public concern. And should the government take stronger action and be more vocal?
So I think that it's funny you bring up this spy balloon example. What's funny there is that I think that's contributing to some of the disbelief on the part of the public, because back then the government took a long time to respond. Looks a lot like this. When they finally shot the balloon down, they said that it wasn't conducting surveillance. Then it was later revealed that it was. So you have a little bit of mistrust in the government agencies that are responsible for this. And you brought up Homeland Security, actually four government agencies that are involved here. Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the FBI, which is the only government agency that has counter UAS authority over the United States, that is to say, to shoot the drones down, unless it's a clear military threat, which would then bring in the Department of Defense. Of course, also the FAA is regulating these items. That, I think, is actually one of the most interesting public policy issues here, which is the lack of clear authorities across state, local, federal, and then across the four government agencies that I mentioned.
All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this one. And we've been talking about the absence of information, which obviously leads to conspiracy theories all over social media. You see them. People are questioning now who these drones may even belong to. And you remember that infamous congressional hearing which claims about the UFOs, and then we had one just last month as well. Then there are those who fear that these drones are from other countries. Any intel, anything that you have into these matters, obviously, again, quickly for me, folks
Yeah.
are, jumping online with the conspiracies.
We could probably rule out that any of the drones that have green and red lights on them are Russian, Chinese, or alien, because it doesn't seem like those entities, if they wanted to fly secretly, would do so in conformity with FAA regulations. So that leaves the small group of objects that have been identified as moving very quickly or without lights or that turn their lights off. And it seems like those particular entities would actually be the type of thing that at least we need to know more about.
All right, I'm going to check those off the list. So no Russia, no China, and no UFOs from extraterrestrial activity. All right, Dr. Gregory McNeal, professor of law and public policy at Pepperdine. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays to you and yours. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Same to you.